Hello, everyone. My name is Eli Davis, and this presentation is on the internship lifecycle. We'll talk about how to maximize the experience your interns have throughout their time at your organization. As always, thank you for making an effort to review our content and commit to the experience here. So let me quickly review our agenda for this section. I will outline the hiring process, cover ways to keep your interns engaged before they start and during their internship, and review best practices for offboarding and converting talent. Given their short time together, this is going to be a quick overview, but you can review our website for all the additional resources that give you more in-depth advice on those specific areas. While I introduced myself briefly at the beginning of our conversation, I did want to share a little bit more about myself. My name is Eli. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the internship program manager at the UDOT's Career and Internship Center. For those of you who are not familiar with us, the CNIC is a centralized career center on campus, and we provide career guidance to students in nearly all majors and school years. My role is really focused on supporting campus partners in developing great internship programs. And I also oversee the administration of specialized scholarship programs that we use to support Huskies who are engaged in various types of experiential learning. All right, so let's jump into hiring and building the talent pipeline. So why does early in career talent matter? Well, internships offer a lot of benefits to students, including supplementing their academics and actually even improving retention rates at institutions of higher education. As internships offer work experience, completing internships makes students more competitive applicants for any future opportunity. When evaluating two equally qualified applicants, employers will often look to that previous internship experience as the distinguishing factor when making those final offers. And internships also benefit employers. When students have great internship experiences, they are more likely to return to the organization as a full-time employee, minimizing the time for onboarding. Great interns also can increase the capacity of a team at the organization, and supervisors can build additional leadership and mentorship skills when they are managing interns. Most students really value these relationships and express that they help them feel a sense of belonging at their internship site. Conversion is often a key benefit for employers. In the 2024 NACE Internship and Co-op report, students accepted internship offers at the same rate as previous years, and over half of them were converted to full-time employees upon graduation. We'll touch on intern satisfaction and compensation a little bit later on, but I did want to highlight that satisfaction impacts conversion rates. And the vast majority of interns who feel fairly compensated would accept that full-time offer from their internship organization, compared to those who did not feel that their pay was fair. As smaller organizations, the lack of name recognition can sort of be a double-edged sword. Some students may overlook your opportunities because they don't know who you are and what experiences you offer. Other students may really value working with a more dynamic team or want to be in an organization where they know more of their coworkers beyond just their internship supervisor, and they might feel like that's not an opportunity at your organization. However, your organization may have the ability to try programs and build on successes much more rapidly than at larger organizations, which you can highlight when marketing to potential students. And because of the nature of the role, you may have the ability to really tap into strong partnerships at universities, departments, or even other organizations due to less staff turnover in those talent acquisition or recruiter type positions. With that in mind, let's review how to recruit talented students. I would highly encourage you to think about compensation as a key component of your program. The U.S. Department of Labor requires for-profit employers to pay their interns a prevailing wage, which can vary depending on your industry, existing local mandates, and the skill set that the interns needs to possess. The state of Washington also passed a pay transparency law, so all positions must contain a pay range. While nonprofit and government organizations are not affected by the DOL guidelines, I would still encourage you to provide a stipend or other compensation to retain competitiveness, in addition to the following benefits of increasing access for students from all backgrounds, increasing investment in the success of the partnership from both the student and the employer end, and again, just staying competitive with other peers in your field. I did want to highlight Pierce County, just south of our campus, as they have an extensive internship benefits page that showcases all of the benefits that they provide their interns, some of which you can implement at low or no cost. We'll dive into high impact practices next, But having perks such as mentorship programs, professional development training, or transportation assistance can help you recruit the highest caliber of talent for your organization. The first step in hiring is looking at your team and determining who will supervise the interns. Ideally, it's someone who already has experience supervising others and also has the ability to take on additional responsibilities of recruiting, onboarding, checking in, and offboarding the intern, along with possibly serving as a reference for any future opportunities. The program manager or internship coordinator team are also critical. If organizations do not have supervisors or managers that are willing or excited even, then it's not a good idea to start building out the internship program. It's important to align expectations of what is ideal versus what is actually feasible given someone's workload. And if multiple people at your organization are managing interns, identify if you'll have shared documentation on what milestones or check-ins they're supposed to meet throughout their internship, or if there might be differences depending on the role or the scope of the intern's projects. This all impacts how you build your brand with students. If they apply expecting a really collaborative on-site internship and end up working with a completely asynchronous remote internship, they might have some complaints. So it's critical to establish those expectations among your organization and team early on and be able to communicate that with your interns. The other component of the internship is the projects, ensuring that it is something that is important to your organization while still meaningful for the intern. Whether there's a focus on a technical skill, a transferable skill, or both, and then keeping it reasonable for an intern's workload. Identifying what is relatively low barrier or something that can be learned while at the site instead of something that requires a lot of training before the intern can take the lead. And then trying to figure out the hours breakdown. Is this something that needs steady weekly hours or something that will flex depending on busy periods? Can multiple interns work on it together, or is it better to have a single student take ownership? And that might look different depending on if the intern is able to commit for just a quarter or for an entire academic year. And then there are also additional logistics of having an intern, especially if you're having them entirely on site versus a remote or hybrid internship. And that includes space and equipment. So will they have a dedicated workspace in the office? Do they receive any company equipment to perform their duties? Does the intern need to have access to specific software or programs to effectively fulfill their job duties? And being very clear about their work schedule, especially if the project requires a minimum number of hours per week. And then thinking about the long term of your hiring process is the permanent hire conversion piece. Is there an ability to become a permanent hire? What does that entail? What is the formal process, and what communication should your intern expect upon the conclusion of their internship? Position descriptions are where you can really shine. Your first paragraph should sell your organization. Tell the students who you are, what you do, and what your mission and values are. Then take the time to outline the role and its purpose. At minimum, listing the core tasks, but if you can also include some learning objectives, that can make the position more tangible for students. If you're interested in integrating generative AI into your process, this is where I think it makes the most impact, in drafting that language and giving you ideas about what the internship can look like. Then listing out the requirements and separating them into required and desired. Required should be the absolute bare minimum that a candidate would need to be successful. For example, when I hired student workers, the required qualifications were just 2 bullet points. Are you enrolled at least part-time? And have you completed the introductory level courses in the subjects that you're interested in tutoring in? That's it. The next piece is providing clear instructions on how students can apply, what materials they need to submit, and when they can expect to hear back from you with an update. Having all of that clearly stated can prevent miscommunications or emailing back and forth leading up to a closing deadline. Finally, some internship-specific details such as approximate start and end dates, how many hours per week they should expect to be working, and the location and compensation details so that the students can ensure it's something that they can really commit to. Once your application deadline is passed, it's time to select your hires. Focus on the knowledge, skills, and abilities in both the application review and the interview phase. Similar to traditional employees, it's best to create a rubric and standardize questions to minimize bias and ensure that everyone involved in the hiring process has a shared understanding of what it means to be the best candidate. Related to that, thinking about cultural add instead of fit. So creating space to reflect on what new perspectives, backgrounds, and experiences your interns can bring to the team. And finally, because no one likes being ghosted, communicating with everyone who applied. A simple, thanks, we moved on to other candidates, is enough to keep students in the loop instead of having them wonder if anyone even saw their application. So now that you have made your offers, how do you minimize melt and keep your interns engaged? First, let's understand why students may renege on their internships. A lot of it comes down to a misalignment of expectations between the role and what the student envisioned. This was heavily impacted by the mass withdrawing of internship offers from organization during the COVID pandemic, and that instability and anxiety about offers is once again bubbling up for students with the volatility in the job market. There may be submitting dozens or even hundreds of applications in an effort to get the best possible offer for their future career goals. Even after they secure an offer, only 11% of students will stop interviewing. So the compensation piece, again, is a top priority for many students. If the internship requires in-person work, maybe the commute is more challenging than the student realized, or they aren't sure if they'll be able to sublet an apartment or something else in a different city. There could also be questions between the job description and what the role actually entails. This is where that robust hiring process should really shine. Having that clear job description and constant communication about what the role is should prevent that shock from a student walking in on their first day and realizing that they completely misunderstood what their role was. Another issue can be a pressure to quickly accept an offer. Because students are often applying to multiple opportunities, I would recommend giving them at least 2 weeks to review your offer before committing to that internship. While rewriting the code, whose data is highlighted here, focuses on the tech field, I've heard from colleagues that reneging on internship offers has held steady between 5 to 10% across many industries. So while you can't eliminate melt entirely, keeping in mind the above should minimize that reneging from your candidates. It's also really helpful to continue to build that excitement about the internship for your intern. They want to hear from you after that initial offer. The cadence will depend on how much lead time there is between the offer and the start date. So organizations that extend offers early in the school year will need to do more follow-up than organizations who don't finalize their hiring process until spring. Aim for at least once per month and try to communicate something substantive that a student can look forward to. Consider creating an onboarding guide that they can review, giving them a preview of their manager or their team, or letting them know about the types of projects that they'll be working on. If you want to send a survey asking them about the types of projects they're interested in, this would be the time. I would also encourage you to add them to Slack or whatever communication channels your organization uses close to their intended start date. They can then make an introduction post, connect with their team members, or generally get to know the work culture and communication guidelines for their student. One way to create meaningful internship experiences is to integrate high impact practices. These active learning practices apply to a broad range of activities, including first-year seminars, academic courses, and internships. The key elements of high impact practices are establishing clear expectations, significant investment of the student, interactions with others, experiencing diversity, receiving feedback, reflecting and integrating learning, discovering how that learning is relevant, and finally, demonstrating competence. These elements can feel really nebulous, so I'll chat about what that might look like in an internship setting. Clear expectations can be set via short and long-term goals, collaboratively created between the internship manager and their student. Reflection and investment can be asking the intern to identify possible challenges and trying to determine what motivates them in the workplace. While you are absolutely encouraged to provide the intern feedback, I also want to suggest that you make it a habit to get their feedback as they work on projects and accumulate to the organization. Other ways that this can look like include assigning collaborative projects between the interns or having them complete tasks during onboarding that necessitates meeting with others on their team. For the public demonstration of competence, many organizations will host showcase events at the end of an internship and ask interns to present their projects, but you can also consider exploring ambassador components or otherwise encouraging your interns to bridge their internship and academics more broadly. While students have a sense of which competencies are the most important in the workplace, so communication, critical thinking, and teamwork, There is a clear disconnect between how students and employers perceive that proficiency within those competencies. Here, I've highlighted the competencies with the biggest disconnect, where most students think they are proficient, but about half of employers feel the same. Ultimately, this is where that culture of constant feedback for interns is really helpful. Students may have outdated knowledge on workplace norms from their community, culture, or parents, or they might be receiving incorrect information from social media. There might also be employer or field specific norms that they need to acclimate to. For example, are interns expected to actively contribute in meetings or just be in attendance at your organization? Employers can foster that professionalism by providing constant feedback for their interns, ideally during informal check in meetings so that they can have some variety in their feedback. And speaking of feedback, feedback should be specific, timely, and actionable for the intern. Framing it within their job description or referring to an employee handbook can provide clear guidelines that the intern can refer to throughout their internship. Avoid feedback that is too generalized or over-exaggerated. Provide those clear next steps on how the intern can improve. And again, having these conversations regularly while also celebrating whenever they hit milestones or achievements can balance that experience for the intern. So when the internship is coming to a close, how do you offboard to continue that lasting relationship? At the heart of this presentation is the goal of increasing student satisfaction with an internship. There are multiple factors that influence this, but ultimately many of them are going to come down to the team and the tasks that the intern is assigned. Feeling like they're well received by their coworkers, feeling supported, and finding work meaningful are all important factors in building intern satisfaction. And intern satisfaction influences many things. During their internship, highly satisfied interns are more committed to their organization and are more productive in their work. And following their internship, higher satisfaction leads to a better reputation for the organization and easier recruitment over time, especially as your organization builds a reputation for having high quality internships. And as I mentioned before, satisfied interns are 6 times more likely to convert to full-time employees than dissatisfied interns. And again, this extends to the offboarding process once your intern is at the end of their internship. Again, feedback should be a constant conversation. So an exit interview can be a good way to gauge what your organization is doing well and what some of those remaining pain points are. A summative evaluation or a chance to present their projects to the rest of the team can also increase satisfaction. Alternatively, you can hold a small thank you event for the interns. And this does not have to be something showy or extravagant. Having everyone on the team sign a thank you note or putting together a small gift bag of candies or other trinkets can still be a nice gesture that demonstrates your thanks to the intern's contributions. Continued engagement for alumni also helps build positive relationships with your brand. If you're regularly hosting many interns, maybe they could all be added to an email listserv or a web page on your website that features past alumni. Or offer returning interns a chance to act as peer mentors or brand ambassadors to incoming interns. And as always, chat about the conversion process with interns. What do they need to demonstrate in order to be offered a full-time position? What metrics do they need to hit? Or how often does your organization even hire early in career talent? All of these are great ways to build transparency and trust with interns at your organization. And as you're aware, interns and students will talk to each other. High intern satisfaction will be a free word of mouth marketing strategy and will ultimately make your recruiting process easier in the future. Scott Research Group found that students have the most trust in what they hear from other students or people that they are close with, while generally being the least trusting of employer created materials like photos, virtual events, and on-demand interviews. Despite that tech savviness of Gen Z, in-person relationships are still critical and they want unfiltered opinions from previous interns. Optimizing the internship lifecycle, creating those great experiences from start to finish, all of that is not only going to make your interns engaged and satisfied, but will also support your managers and organizational goals. Thank you so much again for joining us. Feel free to review any of the additional resources that we have on our website. We have an extensive webpage for all our employer partners. And please reach out to us if you have any additional questions about any of our content.